Introducing aPriori.
So that brings us to aPriori. And I just threw a lot at you, certainly. I mean, you probably are thinking, well, how does aPriori affect any of that? I argue that aPriori is going to be the tool, well, especially at Carrier and other companies, on how you're going to be able to get over the crust. Because we have so many tools that live within this platform now that what we're seeing at Carrier in particular is that our value streams that we use on PLMs, on ERPs, MRPs, all these systems that from a 20th century perspective and early 21st even, work great. There's nothing to take away from what they've been able to accomplish, what companies in the past have been able to do with these tools. But what they haven't been able to do is really take that into the next decade here and really being able to combat a lot of those global trends that I showed earlier. As you saw, productivity is still going down. Sustainability, though we may commit to it, is certainly not being brought up to snuff. And then, of course, now we have all these new technologies around data sharing that aren't really being utilized by most companies. And we're struggling on an innovation space as well. So what can we do to maybe create the next value stream? What could we as people here do in our own companies? Well, this is what I would argue. AP Design and AP Generate, combining with our PLM systems, are going to empower our design engineers. I hear a very common trope around design engineers don't want to use aPriori. As you know, it's true. They don't want to use it. I've seen it myself. You can whack them over the head all you want with it, but they're not going to do it. So what can you do to get them to use it? Well, the key thing that I think we all have seen that does work is if you take their work stream, whatever workflow they're doing, you transform it and make them use it without them even knowing that they're doing it. And that's where PLM integration certainly comes into. AP Report and then Power BI integration, this is where AP Report, AP Analytics, this is where this really comes in home for both sourcing and supply chain, but also your management teams. Because you're able to create your own custom report and you're able to harvest all this data, now you can do all sorts of computations and metrics around it. And especially for a management team, you want that data as soon as you can, and that's why you need something as seamless as AP Report and then your Power BI integration with your own systems. Then that brings us to AP Pro and cost outlier analysis. You know, and this is where your central teams, that's where our value engineering teams come in, our should cost teams. These are the people that are going to be helping to manage this workflow going into the next decade. Especially at Carrier, we're looking at it now as a way to do something I'm calling cost outlier analysis. Not in a traditional sense though. I argue that what you should be doing, both with Power BI, AP Analytics, and all these new tools, is you should be using linear regression technologies. These are not new. It's simple math that you can go through and find the correlation to be able to see across an entire BOM and be able to look and see what is outlined on your contract. You shouldn't have to do a should cost analysis on every single thing. It's just impossible. We can try, but it's just not going to work. It's not a valuable sense of time. Because of that, what you should do is use something less like a sledgehammer, more like a surgical scalpel, and be able to go through an entire BOM and seeing very visibly what is outlined compared to your data set that you are harvesting every day. And then finally, AP Pro and Zero RFQ agreements. I mean, I know Alstom is here. Certainly they're the pioneers in this, and I know a lot of companies are looking into this, and Carrier is no different. Right now we're trying to pilot one with a sheet metal vendor in the US. I think it's going to be going very well. We're working through the agreement phase and should have something hopefully in place later this year. And they're not going to be alone. We've already identified at least 5 other suppliers across the US and across the world that we do want to work with going forward to really start to generate these things. And that's where sustainability comes into play, because for us, as you saw, we have a gigaton goal, and certainly I'm going to be talking more about this later this afternoon, but that gigaton goal is only as good as what you can get from your suppliers. And it's only as good as the data that you get from them. And most of the time, suppliers don't want to give you the data. And I can completely understand that. They don't want to show you the material breakdown. So what are you to do? Well, that's kind of where aPriori is going to have to come on in. You're going to have to model it. You're going to have to do a product energy assessment, and then you can feed that into whatever LCA tools that are out in the marketplace. Certainly we know of many. I'm sure we can name off of the top of our heads at this point.
aPriori, making profitability and sustainability a reality for a better world.